So here I am ready to do my flower arrangement, get on with my flowers. And what I'm going to do first of all is to put my largest flowers in first. And I'm going to use my Lisianthus as my wow flower. Originally I thought I might use the roses, but you can see that the Lisianthus is quite a large flower in comparison to the size of my roses. And I think that's going to take centre stage. I'll then use my smaller roses as my in-between sized flower. And then my wispy flowers, I can be using the little buds on the calanchoe, the forget-me-not, and some of the greener, the small buds here of the anemone. So first of all, I think I've broken that stem there, tuck that down inside. I'm going to start with putting in my main flower. Now you'll see here that you don't need much length on your flower stems. In fact, I'm going to cut that a tiny bit shorter. You need to push the flowers in just so they hold. They don't need to go all the way through the flower foam, and certainly they shouldn't be pushing against the underside of the cup because they won't be getting any water. And you need to decide where to put your wow flower, whether you're going to put it right in the middle. If you were going to look at your flower arrangement from above, that would be a good place, or whether you want to move it over to the side to see it from the front. And I'm favouring putting that first flower in towards the front so that when I'm looking at it from the side view, I can see it. And then to supplement that, just to sort of support its importance, I'm going to come in with a couple of other stems cut equally as short and just make a little row of the flowers. And I'm pushing them quite close in and quite close to the flower foam and snipping off direct from the rest of the flowers that I've got in that vase. And I'm just perhaps going to start with an arrangement of 3 flowers like that. And then to come back with the roses over here, I reach across. So these have been having a good old drink. So I'll look through the roses, decide which is the biggest one. So I've got one there. I say that looks like the biggest, that's the middle-sized one, and that's the smaller rose there. So I'm going to support this first placement of flowers with the roses as well. So I'm going to cut off the side shoots where the leaves are and work carefully because this rose has got prickles and it's there. So I've cut the flower really short and then holding the flower almost like you would hold a pencil. You need to sort of direct it down into the foam and come through to the middle and gently push it in. Make sure it's really secure. And then repeat with the other flowers. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm not taking one of these and one of the others. I've worked with my Lisianthus to begin with. I'm coming back in with my roses. And this little line, I'm going to take it through the centre of the flower, of the flower foam. So it's like I've got a line of white and I'm going to have a repeated pattern, another line of 3 flowers. But I'm taking them across in the other way. And that just leads your eye across in different directions. So it's almost like I've created a very loose sort of cross shape there. So the next flower I'm going to add is just a couple of the roses, the yellow roses, just to add a bit of contrast. So I'm going for these very pale palette of colours, pinks and yellows. And I quite like the fact that with this rose here, it picks up on the buds of the calanchoe, which I'm going to use. So although they'll open out to pink, they do look quite yellowy at the moment. I'm coming in and just, finding a gap really and putting the flowers in. And you can see here, because the roses are so small, that they fit really well with the size of the teacup. They're not overwhelming it. And if I'd had one of the, big romantic Valentine's rose in there, it wouldn't have looked quite so good. And then for my next placement, I'm going to delve into this pot of cuttings I took from the pot plants and from the garden. So here's my calanchoe. I'm going to take off those side shoots there, recut the stems, so everything, I say, really short. And I might have that just coming up over the edge of the teacup there, just so it's nestling on the sides a little bit, breaking up that surface. And then I noticed that the hebe's got tiny pink flowers, so this is picking up on the pink of the rose and the calanchoe. Going to come in, only wants tiny bits. So for this arrangement, although you might not have much in the garden, it's possible, like me, you'll have little pot plants or just little shrubs that are going that you can pick tiny bits from to put into your arrangement. So what I'm doing there is picking off the bits of leaf from the bottom stem, because when you put the stem into the flower foam, you want what florists and flower arrangers call the clean stem. You don't want any little leaves in your flower foam, because they'll start to rot off and that'll shorten the life of your flowers. So this little grouping here is sort of picking up on the detail, the small buddiness of this grouping over here. And again, I particularly liked this little head of wallflower. It's going to burst into purple flowers, and I'm going to cut it off. There, quite short. Again, take off the lower leaves, because I just want that clean stem to go into the flower foam. So I hold that as a pencil, and then find a gap and push it in. Actually, I think that's sticking out a little bit there. So what I will do is cut it shorter. So you can take your flowers out of the foam again, but I just wouldn't do it too often. Too much pushing in and pushing out, you'll find that you start to get these massive holes in your flower foam. It'll all start to weaken and break up. Now with a calanchoe, I cut off 2 pieces, so this looks quite large now in comparison to the smaller bit, and possibly is too large. So I could try and make it smaller by just putting in the top layers. That means getting rid of all these leaves down below and making it much smaller, so they're more of a similar size. So I can put those in, and again, it's lovely to have this sort of teacup arrangement. It really makes you look up close to your flowers and see what you've got. And it's a little study really in different colours and textures and shapes of your flowers. I've lost that other bit of calanchoe now. Found it over here. So I've got the soft silky looking roses up against the smaller leaved hebes with their sort of rough looking buds, but I'm repeating things. So I've got my budded form here, which is sort of a different greenery, but it sort of repeats the shape. I've actually got a true repetition here of the 2 bits of calanchoe foliage, and then the line of white that doesn't look quite so obvious now, a line of the red, and then the 2 roses here, the 2 coloured roses, but because they are different colours, they just add a different look to the arrangement. And you could just, fill in like a little patchwork. So here, little bits of conifer, I can cut into that and give me some more stems. It's got a slight sort of curve to it, so perhaps put 1 piece over here at the back and 1 at the front, and it just adds a lovely, it's quite a yellowy, limey green conifer. So it just, again, a slightly different colour, and it's picking up now on the yellowness of the centre of the lisianthus. And this is when your colours all start to talk to each other, and we can work our way through. So I also picked some sedum from the garden. Again, I thought that was quite a small bud, but for me, that's just too large for what I'm working with. So I'll recut the stem and put that into the vase there. I don't particularly think I want any more greenery in that, but as I turn it round, you'll see that I've got some bare spaces on the flower foam. So the aim is we want to be covering in the flower foam. So I need to look through and see what else I want to add in. So I've just had a little bit of a tidy round so I can see what I'm working with. And I've decided that as I've got the white lisianthus coming through, I'm going to repeat that to what will be the back of the arrangement. I'm going to be putting this on a shelf in my living room, so I'm making sure it looks really good from the front, which is where I want the larger lisianthus to be. If you're having it on a coffee table, so you're going to be able to see it all the way around, you might want to put a larger flower in here, so from whatever direction you went in, you were always looking at the front. Now what I've added in here are the little buds of the lisianthus. Again, they probably won't open out, and they may in fact droop. Sometimes they do, but it's nice to be able to add them into the arrangement. It just adds a little contrast in the shape. The buds are always a slightly different colour to the main flower. And to introduce, where I've got most of my flowers are quite round, it's sort of this lovely conical shape and just adds a bit of interest. And here, next to the tight bud of the little yellow rose, is sort of almost replicating the shape of the bud there, but on a different form. So now I'm going to come back in, and I wanted to use some of these buds from my anemone, which have come from another arrangement, because it's just, you know, the little tiny pieces. You can, if you have got another flower arrangement at home that you've been working on, you could always harvest little pieces out of that. So these won't ever actually open, but they do show a lovely bit of colour. And the same sort of thing, as I like to group them together. I've got them standing out a little bit higher. This one's setting quite low and this one's set a tiny bit higher. So not everything's on the same plane the whole time. You want to have what florists and flower arrangers would call recession. So your eye is sort of bouncing in and around the arrangement. Now the only thing I'm doing here is just being really careful, because the stems on these spring flowers are quite delicate, and if I'm too heavy-handed with them, I'm going to end up squashing my arrangement. You just want to carefully go in. If you had got really delicate flowers, what you can do is take a woody stem and make a guide hole first of all with your stem. And that will make it much easier to put your soft stem flowers in, because you're not using the stem to create the hole, you're just sliding the stem into the little guide hole, and that'll go in much easier. Now I'm filling out here, but I'm still getting little gaps. So there's some tiny gaps here. You can see the flower foams. The aim is to cover that, and I've got a larger gap over here. So what I might do is coming back and looking at bits of green. So I might come back in with some of my hebe here. So using your greenery is a really good way of helping to cover the flower foam. It's a bit knobbly bit there, I should cut that away. Covers the flower foam. It means you don't have to spend so much money on flowers, especially if you've got a garden, because you can just harvest what's in your garden for free. So you have to be quite delicate, because it's a very small arrangement. This little bit of hebe's got a little curve on it, so I might put that one over there and have it curving over the end of over the rim of the teacup. And then my last little bits, I'll put in some more of the calanchoe. So you remember that I had calanchoe around here at the front, and then just to repeat that at the back. And again, it gives something, the eye, something to lock onto. It's spotted the calanchoe over one side, and you just need to sort of anchor it across the other side of your arrangement as well. And then it'll be one final check just to make sure you have covered all the flower foam and you've got it looking how you want it to look. And sometimes what it's nice to do as well with these spring flowers, with forget-me-nots or any other tiny flower, is just to add something in so it just lifts a little bit. You create this sort of plane of flowers floating above your arrangement. So you've got the solidity of the flowers with all their textural contrast and the lovely colour contrast as well. And then just a little floating cloud over the top. And it just creates a bit of natural movement. And as the breeze catches these flowers, you know, as you walk through your living room, they will just nod gently. Now you may well find the spring flowers aren't very robust. As I say, flower arranging is all a matter of trial and error and working out what likes to be in flower foam. And if they don't like it, you can pull them out and it'll make your arrangement look a little bit different that day. Or you can find something else that you think would like to have a try. And especially if you've got a garden, you've got a whole, you know, a host of things you could be trying out and seeing how well they last in the flower foam. So those are just hovering above the arrangement, and you can see as I pick the cup up, they're just sort of nodding gently. But that would be a way to arrange the flowers. I've kept them all quite small. They're all in scale with my teacup. And in fact, even this lisianthus looks quite large. But I've just gone with looking at contrast between shapes and colours and textures, just to make it a real visually interesting arrangement to look at.